Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. This is number two of our three-part video series with Dan Krantz, and we are going into the mind of a forward-thinking CIO. Dan joins us as CIO of Keysight Technologies, and in our first episode, we spoke about the priorities that need to be set given the backdrop of 2020 and what that means for CIOs crafting their 2021 agenda. Now, you mentioned digital first in the first episode, Dan, and welcome, by the way. I was just
Yeah,
going to
good to
dive.
be here with you, Candace, today.
Great. So you mentioned digital first as a mindset. I wanted to dive into and just explore a little bit about how you were going to try and achieve the speed and flexibility that you spoke of, looking at software development and how that is a priority, and how would a CIO of today try and make sure that they tune their business with that as a capability.
Yeah, Candace, the part about speed in software development, it demands that we embrace two changes actually when we want to go faster. And a lot of times we immediately jump and think that to go faster, you just got to bring in better technologies. But actually, the first change is new software development methodologies. Because technology alone doesn't solve the problems. How you use it is what really matters. So, number one on going faster is shifting to a different methodology. Basically, our old, slow, linear waterfall approaches, they just don't scale in the digital first world anymore. We're all about embracing iterative, agile methods. We've got to get our teams to wrap around that. That's what we're doing at Keysight. Actually, we've been in an approach of using more traditional waterfall approaches, and they've been proving us very successful, very error free, but just not fast enough. So we're going through a massive adoption of agile practices in our software development. But that alone isn't enough just to go agile. If you still are human first in all of your processes within agile, then your DevOps and your CI/CD pipelines, all of that is going to just continue to be slow. You then need to add in automation. That's what brings the real speed, is automation coupled with the embrace of formal agile adoptions. So that's the speed front. Candace, you're asking me about flexibility in software development. And in our previous episode, we were talking about a new technology architecture where many of us are working on more like composable, best of breed components that are stitched together, hybrid cloud solutions with lots of custom software that's built in there and APIs where information flows across that. That's going to give us flexibility. But in our software development practices, what we've also now introduced with that complexity is the much higher degree of possible errors. Because the complexity of changes in one area and the cascading effect to your entire composable architecture can be catastrophic. And so the solution to that, to the flexibility problem of this composable architecture, is a much more robust ability for testing end to end, taking use cases that you can then test end to end across that composable architecture and have a way to test and verify across that whole scope.
Brilliant. There's a question I want to ask with regard to that end-to-end process, because there's two dimensions to that. One being testing just a particular application that you are developing, and then looking at, that composable infrastructure, taking all of these components that are stitched together so that a business process can flow from intent all the way through to output. And that means that your approach and that paradigm shift you spoke of, moving from waterfall to agile, is dependent on your ability to really test the components that matter. Why would you say succinctly, Dan, is software testing important?
Software testing is important in an automated way because trying to do it manually is just not going to scale. Just imagine, I'm talking to our software developers out there, you're doing your git committing your code. You've just finished making your code change. If you don't have an automated build immediately trigger, and then follow on from that, an automated test, and have that test be orchestrated around the change you made and the dependencies that are linked to it, if that's not also automated, but instead you need to then trigger a manual test, you can't go at the pace that you aspire to. You've got to build into your entire development pipeline automation of the builds and automation of the tests, and most importantly, that those tests are testing what matters, what you've changed on it. That way, you don't have to rely on manual regression testing of your entire stack, because our entire stacks are now becoming so complex. We just don't have the bandwidth and the time to do all of that testing. You've got to test what matters, and you need automation to do that.
Brilliant. There's a McKinsey report that said the last year has condensed 7 years worth of development and, I suppose, digital transformation into just one. And a quote by Satya Nadella said, they've seen 2 years worth of progress compressed into months within 2020. And that definitely means that things need to move faster. But I love your approach on making sure that it is efficient and that it's not just the components going faster, but it's also a case of accuracy at the tail end of that. The third question I was due to ask you was the role of test automation. You've kind of explained that already. Is there anything with regard to test automation and how you set that out and how it is, I suppose, composite to that digital or agile mindset that you wanted to go through again, Dan?
Yeah, on the testing automation, the need for speed is the driving force. But there's actually another reason why I think testing automation is important, and it's back to that one of those third drivers I was talking about, user experience, and how we're all trying to do a much better job with user experience. So I think everyone gets the point of doing testing to kind of sniff out and find your bugs that you may have accidentally introduced, or the cascading effects, and you want to be able to do that in an automated way. But testing the user experience is not just about having intuitive screen layouts. You may have the most elegant design in terms of your screen and how that's going to work. But the key to a great user experience is responsiveness. Buttons and forms and fields kind of at they respond at the swipe of your fingers in a very intuitive way. And being able to have your testing kind of verify and measure that the response times of every one of those interactions is actually at an acceptable level is key to, I think, the automation objective as we're trying to do test automation. So it's not just about finding and resolving issues. It's about assurance of the user experience in a measured way that I think only a smart test capability can bring.
Thank you very much for that, Dan. It was really insightful. I wanted to just check with you, because there will be winners and losers out of the automation game. What would you say is the difference between an organization that has adopted automation into their, or a software testing and automation mindset into their digital stack versus somebody that has ignored that?
I think the way I would put it, Candace, in testing automation, if it's part of your digital stack or if it's not part of your digital stack, it's the difference between those who are scaling and those who are flailing. So if you've got digital test automation, you're going to be scaling. You're going to be able to take your ambitions to a level you never thought possible. If you're still relying on your old manual approaches to testing, you haven't really put together an automation framework. You haven't put together testing of both the code quality as well as the experience. You're going to be flailing. You're going to be throwing more bodies at it. You're going to be probably less efficient. You'll be slower. And probably the quality is never going to catch up to those who have really embraced end-to-end, full, smart, intelligent test automation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And I think most people want to be on the side of scaling versus not, given that consumers want so much and are demanding more from organizations. Being able to do more with less is such a big imperative and a driving force. I'd like to, for our third episode, to really dive into your experience as it relates to software test and software test automation. But I wanted to just say thank you very much for sharing the few thoughts and the few minutes with us today. It was really, really insightful. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Candace. Good to be here.